When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode.
In another conversation, you just brought up the workplace violence. I know since everybody's gone remote, have we seen it? I'm sure you talked to your industry colleagues out there, but it seems like we've seen a drop in the workplace violence stuff going on in the last year or so because of the remote working with COVID and all that.
Yeah, I think that might be true. In others, and I have heard some of my colleagues talking about that. My company being a manufacturing company, right? Other than, so 80% of our company is hourly line.
Oh, okay.
And then 20% is salaried stuff. And so is there opportunity within that 20% for remote stuff? Yeah, there certainly is. But on the other hand, the other side, really not. But yeah, my contemporaries and my co CSOs out there, absolutely, I've heard that that there's Dollar Tree is corporate headquarters is right down the road here in Virginia. They started building a shiny new building right before COVID hit.
Oh, sure.
I have some contacts that work over there, and they're like, yeah, they're really pushing to try to get people back. And of course, how this is, goes, right? Is people don't want to come back anymore. So they've got a building that is, has some issues on it. But I think that also opens up. I think that opens us up to some workplace violence issues as well, meaning that, on a day-to-day basis, if everybody's in the office, then you who's around you, what's happening. If you have a remote or a hybrid, people are coming in and out, and I think it loosens people's awareness around them of what's going on. It's, that person. Oh yeah, of course there's somebody over in that cube because they're here like once a week.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you're as, attuned to what's going on around you with so much, uncertainty, or the structure's off a little bit.
Sure.
If that makes sense,
Makes sense.
And of course, the other thing is too, we had a situation here. I mean, it turned out okay, but the individual got at one of our locations. Individual got terminated remotely, and was given instructions of, hey, mail your. They sent him all the UPS stuff to mail the computer and the phone and everything, badge, everything back in. Well, the person took it upon themselves to drive 45 minutes into the office and come into the office. And, it was uncomfortable. The person was not violent, and he wasn't even demonstrative. But it shows that they're not all remote. Like he felt like he needed to come in and talk to somebody, and that it could have gone a different
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah. Almost sometimes you need a psychologist on board just to have a little counsel session, take him to the side and make sure he's okay and mental health is all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. And
maybe that hiring background, you probably can't do too much of a deep dive psychologically on him because you're not doing a medical examination, just doing a hiring background.
Yeah, we do a basic hiring background, and our turnover is something that's, because of the type of industry we're in, we have a lot of turnover. So, we do have a lot of long-term employees, but there's also, within that first year and a half, 2 years, there's a churn.
Sure.
And so we're turning over a lot of people. And, we have some interesting things. I won't say it's to us. I think just in manufacturing and in general, but we have language issues, right? We have
Sure.
we as a company have 5 languages that we recognize.
Okay.
that we know. But yet I've got some facilities that have upwards to 11 languages spoken in the same facility.
Wow.
So again, how do you deal with that, right? So again, communication is key. So what things are out there that we can best communicate what our strategies are to the people.
Another thought process, I having is, are law enforcement transitioning, retiring out, military folks retiring out. How has the corporate security world been? Has it been a pretty easy? Do you think that's an easy transition for most? And what is your advice to those folks?
I think it can be if you find the right fit,
Yeah.
right? So I throughout my career, I always said I was lucky, but I also felt like I was very smart in what I did. I never left a job, right? I only ever went to an opportunity. I always picked jobs that especially near the end of my career, I always said, is that a job I can stay in until I retire?
Sure.
And if I couldn't answer it yes, I didn't take it. Because if I couldn't stay for 10 years, then then there's no use doing it. So I think, there's 2 sides to the security realm, that consulting world of security consulting, and then the world of being a CSO or being in a security department. I think that the transition, if you're take the time to look exactly where you're going, talk to the people that you're bringing on, or that are going to bring you on. Who are you going to work with? Do you like the company? Do you see how you're going to fit in there? If you just take a job, you're not going to be successful. You're going to be very disappointed. We're right now in the midst of hiring 2 people. And from my side, that in-person interview is the most important. And really, the way I set it up, it's not an interview. I pull up what our projects are. I show them what products we've put together. I talk about the plus sizes of being here. I talk about the frustrations.
Absolutely.
Right. And I want them to know what they're walking into. Right. And I've had people say, oh, yeah, that didn't seem for me. And that's why I do it, because, you have to know what you're walking into. So I think it can be an easier transition if you're thoughtful about where you're going, and you just don't chase the money. Not that there's as much money out there to be had these days as there was before, but don't chase the money, and don't get lured into, oh, well, somebody's looking at me, so I think I should take that job. Right? I always say it's my colloquialism is the prom experience. We all love being invited to the prom, but then when the limo shows up, you're like, ooh, is that really who I wanted to go with? This isn't really. And so don't get enamored with the process. Make sure you're thoughtful about where you're going to land.
Make sure it's a good fit before you take on the role. That makes really good sense. Just don't get good. The money's good. Like here on the West Coast, especially, I've heard people wanting these CISO positions that I've heard people wanting $500,000 a year or $200,000 a year. I'm like, okay, yeah, cost of living is expensive in West Coast California, but it seems like a lot of those positions are, inflation's hitting those roles too. Like, we can't afford to pay that. And
I just talked to a colleague about 2 weeks ago who worked for a manufacturing company. And, I think pre-COVID, if you're at a certain level, there were jobs out there that you could ask for that and you're probably going to get it. But the company he worked for, they just disbanded the whole security section.
Wow.
Because of, and I mean, this is a place that had, manufacturing and retail stores, probably, close to 4,000 across the United States, and decided, we're gonna do cost cutting measures. So, yeah, you gotta be careful of what you're looking at, and look for a place that's a good fit. And I think all of us who came from the military, that unit cohesiveness is just as important in the corporate world as it was in the Marine Corps. And, that you want that, right? I want to feel involved. I want to know that from a CSO perspective, I'm looking to hire people who are going to bring ideas to the table, but that they can put their ego in a box with mine and say, yeah, that's a great idea, or, ooh, that's a terrible idea. And it goes both ways, right? I always tell people, as a CSO, I want you to tell me if I'm getting ready to walk us into the thresher, right? Because if I go in and you let me go in, guess who's coming behind me? We're all going in. So I want you to speak up. And I think, like I said, that goes back to that unit cohesiveness of what we all learned in the military, especially, and then later on in law enforcement. That's why it's so important.
Right. Yeah, it was an interesting story you said about, a major chain, 4,000 store chain, and they just decided to eliminate the whole security program. I mean, after COVID. So that's very telling, because I'm hearing a lot of folks, applying for, these high level security roles. I'm like, hey, that money, those salaries just aren't there. And if they don't see risk, they don't see threats, the CFO and those guys aren't going to justify that kind of salary.
Yeah, I had another very good friend of mine who was a CSO at a company, and really was great guy, had great ideas, was pushing hard on them in one stuff, but the CEO of that company didn't see it that way, and they, and then I think what happened was there was an incident.
Oh wow!
And so of course the security guy was like, well, if you'd have given me what I asked for, we wouldn't have this problem. And then, well, guess what? He was looking for a new job pretty soon. Because again, that's how it works. That's the other thing I think in the corporate world that was most surprising. When I got here, we had a lot of turnover at the top. The CEO that brought me on, he retired a couple months after I got here. There was some turmoil with the next guy, and the C-suite changed every day.
Wow!
Every day I'd walk in and that office was dark, or somebody was walking down the hall with boxes, or I was being told, hey, so-and-so is no longer here. And that's the bigger thing between, I think that's the biggest shock value between the government and the corporate.
Wow.
When they're done with you, they're done with you. There's no performance improvement plan. There's no, we talk about it, but bottom line, companies are not going to keep a problem around as much. And I think that's the shocking thing, right? Whereas we come from the government, like I said, in the government, you almost have to shoot the Pope to get fired. And even then, you'll probably just get suspended for a couple of weeks, while we sort it out. That's not the case here. Here, if you have if you're part of a loss for the company, you are lost from the company.
They're not going to tolerate it.
No, And why should they? Right? There's lots of talented people out there that they can bring in a myriad of roles. But since we're talking about security, that's what's happening. Yeah,
that's a good point. You come from the government sector and you think you're indisposable in that role, and then you come from the government sector, you have that mentality. You bring in the private side, and like you said, they're not going to have the patience unless you're producing and making a profit. It's like, oh, you're causing us more problems. You're not going to last.
Well, and I think the other thing too is, and I had this conversation with one of the HR people back at the FBI, and I said, and I was lucky enough in my career to advance to a certain level, right? And there were certainly lots of people above me, but they always, when they would talk about transitioning, they'd bring these guys in. Well, they always would bring in, the Vince Lombardis, the Michael Jordans of the FBI, who went out and got these unicorn jobs. And of course, everybody's sitting there going, oh yeah, I'm going to do that too. And I said, you really need to start bringing in people like me and, my other buddy I was talking about. And I said, because we're going to give you a more realistic version of what's going on out there. These people that left at a very high level in the FBI, just like in the military, a general officer transitioning or a flag officer transitioning to the corporate world is completely different than an 05 or an 06 or an E8 transitioning to the private sector. But who do we always sit and listen to? The general officers, the flag rank officers, and they talk about that transition. Right. It's really a different world, and and I'm lucky enough to know several of those people that you probably mentioned, and you've probably discussed with, but their experience going out to the corporate world and being a chief security officer or a senior VP or an executive VP over security is completely different than the majority of us coming out to this world.
Yeah, totally different experiences. And then the way they communicate, and it's just a higher, like you said, it's a different higher level where they come from, and then they get in that new role, and it's like, oh, this is different from what I used to do, and so the adjustment, transition.
Yeah. Well, and I think that especially as a CSO, now, at the different levels of a security department, it's different, obviously. But coming out as a CSO, you most likely had to have attained a certain level within the government to go straight across, right? So if you're not a senior executive or if you're not a 06 or a general officer, you're probably not going straight across. The biggest thing there is you're not in charge anymore.
Right.
So, we all had bosses in the government, but, I ran my own field office at the end of my career, and, I had a lot of autonomy. I'm not the final decision maker here at this company. Right. I'm an advisor, and that's my role.
So that's the important thing to think about too. You're, like you said, you're an advisor in that position, and you can't force the C-suite or the CFO or general counsel to say yes to you all the time, because their job is to protect that bottom line too.
Well, and I always think of it this way, because I flip it back to when I was ran my field office in the FBI. People came to me all the time with risk. Hey, if we do this is a risk. If we don't do this is a risk. And it was my job to discern whether I was willing to accept that risk and at what level. And so since you were making those decisions, now that I'm here, my job is to be the one telling my boss what the risk is.
Yeah.
If my boss decides that they're willing to accept that risk, I can't be so married to my project and to my department that I fight with them. That's not my role. And I think that's where sometimes CSOs go sideways is because, well, you've got to do this, because we come from a place, like I said, the military and the government, where security is second nature. It's around us all the time because we're dealing with top secret documents or secret information or whatever. And here we're not doing that. And so they're mitigating that risk. And part of their mitigation is, do I have the capital to spend on that, or am I going to spend my capital somewhere else? And
there you go.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yeah, it is, but you'd be surprised how many people have a hard time with it. So,
So any starting to wrap this up. Any parting words to the industry out there? I'm sure you see a lot of stuff out there, hear a lot of things. Any advice to the industry folks, leadership out there, and any advice to those trying to break it in the industry as far as where do you see the industry going at this moment in time? I think the world's a dangerous place and will always become a dangerous place because you have 24/7 social media feeding in your brain all the time. So that doesn't stop.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to continue to try to educate our C-suite away from the idea of it's not going to happen. Because I think that happens on a daily basis. We see mass shootings, we see employee violence, but that happens somewhere else. And just beating that drum that it could happen here if we don't do the right things is really what you have to do. And I think understanding each other, what I'd ask from C-suite people is walk around with your security people, see exactly what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it. And then for the security people, understand your company and what the mission is and what their risk levels are. And I think that's what it is. But yeah, getting people away from this mindset that it's not going to happen to us, because it hasn't, right? That's
and your job is to prevent it from preventative, proactive.
Yeah, and that's where that information comes from. Is, hey, where did I know this ahead of time? What can I do about this? And there's you never know what's going to happen. We had an employee one day worked great, left work, and had a break. Had a break from reality, and started claiming things like the world was going to end. And this was within an hour of the person leaving the ship.
Wow. Crazy.
You just don't know what's going to happen. And had a spotless record.
Yeah. Wow.
Spotless record. Now, he wasn't espousing any violence towards anybody other than just telling us the world was going to end. But, it's as simple as something like that can happen. What would have happened if they'd have been in the wrong place? What if they'd had access to weaponry or just, had a different mindset? But I like the industry. I find it fascinating. I loved my time in the Marine Corps. I loved my time in the FBI. I always said in 25 years in the FBI, I could count on one hand the number of days I didn't want to go to work. I loved it.
Wow, it was a lot of fun.
And this transition has been as rewarding. I love it. I love learning about a new industry. I love trying to bring my skill set from those years to here and trying to educate people on why security is important and helping the company fulfill its security goals. It's fascinating to me. So, watching all that bacon get made is amazing. So.
Yeah, I remember being in high school and seeing your brand on the label packaging in the refrigerator. I'm like, who's that? I'm like, oh,
Well, I'll just tell you this. We make. I love going to our yearly kickoff meeting with the ops people and the business and the sales team. Last year, we manufactured enough hot dogs to circle the globe 7.5 times.
7.5 times. That's a lot of hot dogs.
That's a lot of hot dogs. So I'm always sitting there. I love the sales guys when they start talking about it. Man, it's fascinating.
Is it true? Hot dogs with a bunch of mixed up stuff? I always heard that. Is that true? Is that a fallacy?
That's back in the old days. That's the old Upton Sinclair stuff. It's much more. But I tell you, around the world, because we sell product around the world, there's not much of the pig that's not consumed somewhere in this world.
Crazy. Is a hot dog a pig product or a beef product? Or it depends on
both. You got beef dogs and pork dogs.
Okay.
So yeah. I mean, So yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the football, like you said, the tailgate party food and holiday food.
It's holiday food. It's great. Yeah, like I said, and it's it's you got to find the right fit. I feel like I did it here. It's a good fit for me. I know other CSOs at other jobs, and I look at them and I think, I don't know if I'd be happy in their role.
Yeah.
And then I think the thing back is that I'm not sure they'd be happy in my role. So again, make sure your personality is going to fit where you want to go.
Great advice. Like you have different, like you said, different industries. You have tech, you have software, you have pharma. I mean, so many different industries out there. It's massive.
Well, one of my very good friends works. He's the CSO at a major energy company, energy provider.
Yeah.
And when we laugh all the time that we share the same role, but we would not want to switch with each other. We would not do well in each other's role. And that's what's important. You've got to find where you fit.
Yeah, utility versus manufacturing, that's a different animal altogether.
Well, it's not even that. It's that I have a team of 4. He has a team of 200. He has all these different interactions and things that I don't have, and yet for him to come and walk around farms and plants that are manufacturing food, he wouldn't want.
No way.
Right. So again, and I wouldn't want to be in a coat and tie every day like he is, So it's just, so you like I said, there's enough for everybody, out there.
There is, absolutely. Well, with that said, folks, this podcast has been sponsored by the Ledlow Security Intelligence Group. I just added the intelligence space this year. We're going to be launching into the intelligence division of our company, because that's just where the industry is going. And if you want to find this podcast, we're on YouTube and under the Fearless Mindset Podcast on YouTube. And then we're on all the podcast platforms. And please give us some sort of rating on the podcast platform. Let us know how we're doing. And we'll be posting this probably in a few weeks. This will be in the queue. And Martin, how people find you? Just LinkedIn? If they want to reach out? Question?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm on there, and always happy to hear from people and share stuff. I'm on in the security world. I'm a member of ISMA and ASIS, so if people have contact with that, they can contact me that way as well.
Yeah.
But always happy to help folks and share what we're doing and get ideas from people. I love hearing other people's ideas because everybody's got different perspectives.
Learn from each other.
That's right.
Yes, folks, please follow Martin on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, you can shoot him over there, and we'll be posting this on the LinkedIn business channel. And if you need security services, of course, feel free to reach out to our team. And we're here to support in this new 2024 election era, and we'll get past the elections, and I think there's a brighter future for everybody in America, and keep doing what you guys do out there. And thanks to the servicemen and women serving our country, and thanks for the men and women that serve in law enforcement around the country as well. With that said, thanks for supporting the Fearless Mindset podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode. See you soon.